I've declared my interest as a farmer. I'm an active farmer, and I have to tell you, my experience of DEFRA is a very poor one, and most farmers would agree with me that DEFRA is not fit for purpose. You can't keep staff for more than a nanosecond. They all disappear, they go. So 1 minute you've got a contact you speak to, the next minute you've got a new temp who doesn't know the rules themselves. Somebody needs to get their head down and have a plan to sort this out, because farming is a crucial industry to this country.
Stay with me, because the full video I'm about to show you puts everything into a new perspective. Right, so imagine going into a select committee meeting to talk about farming, sewage, funding schemes, the usual joys of rural bureaucracy, and somehow, in the middle of all that, someone tries to change the subject to a newspaper article about diversity in the countryside. That's not a joke, that's genuinely what happens in today's clip, and the reaction to it is one of the more quietly savage moments you'll see in a committee room this year. Real quick, before we roll the footage, if you're enjoying this content, do me a huge favour. Hit that like button and smash subscribe. Over 98% of viewers watch without subscribing. Don't be one of them. It's free for you and it helps us out more than you know. Already clicked? You're awesome. Let's get into the video.
Indeed. Rupert Lowe.
Thank you, Chairman. I've declared my interest as a farmer. I'm an active farmer, and I have to tell you, my experience of DEFRA is a very poor one, and most farmers would agree with me that DEFRA is not fit for purpose. You know, your rule book mutates like a virus. Half the time you shut your schemes within 24 hours because you've got it wrong and everybody's claiming legume fallow in this case. You know, how can an industry that is based on long-term planning, how can they respond when you don't know your own rule book? And the other thing you've got a problem with, in my view, is you can't keep staff for more than a nanosecond. They all disappear, they go. So 1 minute you've got a contact you speak to, the next minute you've got a new temp who doesn't know the rules themselves. So I'm sorry, I really think that rather than giving us a lot of spiel, you know, somebody needs to get their head down and have a plan to sort this out, because farming is a crucial industry to this country. And as a farmer, I can tell you, when I have adequate intelligence, I find it very hard to follow your homunculus-like rule book, which changes like the weather. So it's terrible.
Perhaps I could pick up a few of those points in turn, and just for your reassurance, we have got our head down and we are trying to sort this out, but I recognise some of the challenges that you are raising, and specifically on, I think you're referring to the closure of the
You're
SFI.
giving me lots of aspirational...
Order. We must let the permanent... You've had your question.
So on the very specific point about closing the funding window, I think that's a reference to the closure of SFI last year. You're quite right, there are lessons for us to learn. Ministers have been very clear that that was a breach of trust. We lost a lot of trust with farmers when that happened.
Now you're talking about diversity in the countryside, I saw this morning in the Daily Telegraph, but I think you've got better things to concentrate on, frankly. But anyway,
so
getting out of scope. Have you got another question?
I think I've got one more, giving you a personal example. So I've had two problems on I have part of the River Colne flows through my farm. So we have, for a start, Thames Water, whose storm drains, when we get a storm, you get raw sewage flowing into the Colne. Nothing gets done about that. And again, I think the Environment Agency, you're too soft. In my view, you're as soft as a boiled maggot with them. You should deal with that.
Okay.
So, Geoffrey, I think there's a lot that needs to be done.
No, I agree.
Loads of stuff.
Yeah, right. Come on. Which one? Philip, do you wish to answer that?
Okay. Where would you like me to start? Hydrochloric acid, storm spills, IT, what would be best?
Start with Thames Water.
Okay.
Water quality.
Right. So let's just start with that. First of all, we have to follow the law as it is, not how we would like it to be. And I just want to remind the committee that in many cases, a sewage spill during a period of extremely high rain is lawful. I recognise that is not a popular position, but that is the law.
The record, Mr. Davey, you might like to clarify that whilst stormwater discharges may be legal, dry weather condition discharges have to be according to the permit, and that's when you will take action.
It's a very good clarification, Mr. Clifton, and one that is right. All I would say at the minute is we are very keen on transparency, so we're publishing all of the storm overflows from the water industry. There are very many of them.
So the session opens with Rupert Lowe declaring his interest as an active farmer, which is always a good sign that what follows is going to come from someone who actually lives the problem rather than just reading about it in a briefing pack. And he doesn't hold back. His first target is DEFRA itself, and specifically how the department runs its schemes for farmers. His complaint, in his own words, is that the rulebook mutates like a virus, schemes getting shut with next to no notice, sometimes within 24 hours, because apparently something's done wrong on DEFRA's end, leaving farmers who've planned around those schemes scrambling to adjust. And if you know anything about farming, you'll know that's not an industry built for sudden pivots. Crops don't unplant themselves. Investment decisions get made years in advance. So when the rules shift overnight, that's not a minor inconvenience, that's a genuine operational headache. On top of that, he raises staff turnover, saying that just as you build a working relationship with a contact at DEFRA who actually understands your case, they vanish and get replaced by someone new who doesn't know the rules any better than you do. It's the bureaucratic equivalent of finally getting through to a call centre, building rapport, and then getting disconnected and having to start again from scratch with someone reading off a different script. Now, here's where the official response gets interesting. There's an acknowledgement, credit where it's due, that lessons need to be learned, and a fairly direct admission that closing last year's funding scheme abruptly was, in their own words, a breach of trust with farmers. That's not nothing, that's a fairly candid admission on the record. But then comes the pivot that's really the heart of this clip. The official brings up, unprompted, that Lowe had apparently been talking about diversity in the countryside, referencing something seen that morning in the Telegraph, before adding that Lowe has, and I'm quoting here, better things to concentrate on, frankly. Now, whatever you make of that exchange, it's a striking moment, because in a meeting that's supposed to be about funding schemes, staff turnover and sewage in rivers, it's the official, not Lowe, who brings the diversity story into the room, seemingly to wave it away as something not worth the committee's time. Lowe, unbothered, ploughs straight back into the substance, raising a genuinely serious issue, raw sewage flowing into the River Cole that runs through his own farm during storm events, and what he clearly feels is a lack of enforcement from the Environment Agency, describing them memorably as soft as a boiled maggot. Which, say what you like about the phrasing, is certainly evocative. The response here is where things get legally interesting rather than just heated. The official points out, fairly reasonably, that storm overflow discharges during periods of extremely high rainfall are, under current law, actually lawful. Not a popular fact, as they themselves admit, but a fact all the same. Where enforcement action does kick in is when discharges happen during dry weather, outside of what the permit allows, and that distinction gets clarified for the record. There's also a mention of increased transparency, with the water industry's storm overflow data now being published. So what you're left with by the end of this exchange is a genuinely useful, if slightly chaotic, piece of accountability. A working farmer laying out real, specific problems, unstable rulebooks, disappearing contacts, sewage in his own river, and getting, in fairness, some real answers back, including an admission of past mistakes and a clarification of where the actual legal lines sit. But sitting right in the middle of it all is that one strange detour, where instead of engaging with the substance, someone tries to steer the conversation toward a newspaper headline about diversity, only to be brushed past by a farmer who'd rather talk about raw sewage than culture war headlines. Let me know in the comments what you make of that boiled maggot line, because I don't think I've heard sewage enforcement described quite like that before, and I'll see you in the next one.